Terrorism exacts a heavy toll on the global economy, and its direct costs are staggering. These costs encompass the physical damage inflicted by attacks, such as the destruction of buildings, infrastructure, and resources. The global economic impact of violence reached a staggering $19.1 trillion in 2023. This equates to a loss of $2,380 for every person on the planet. These figures, while significant, only scratch the surface of the true economic burden. The costs of responding to terrorism, including security measures, emergency services, and medical treatment, place a significant strain on government budgets and divert resources away from essential services. Moreover, the loss of human capital due to death, injury, and displacement further exacerbates the economic impact. Countries embroiled in conflict bear the brunt of these costs. For some nations, the economic burden of violence can consume over 20% of their entire GDP. Take for instance the devastating impact on Ukraine, where the ongoing conflict has resulted in a staggering 68.52% of its GDP being consumed by violence-related expenses. The human cost of terrorism is immeasurable, but the economic toll is a stark reminder of the urgent need for global cooperation to combat this pervasive threat. The financial burden underscores the importance of investing in preventative measures, such as diplomacy, conflict resolution, and addressing the root causes of terrorism, to mitigate the devastating economic consequences of violence. Terrorism thrives in environments of instability, and its very presence injects a high degree of geopolitical risk into the global system. This uncertainty, fueled by the fear of future attacks and the unpredictable nature of terrorist acts, has a chilling effect on the global economy. Investors, both domestic and foreign, become wary of committing capital in regions perceived as unstable. The threat of terrorism can disrupt supply chains, damage infrastructure, and create an environment where businesses are reluctant to invest and grow. This reticence to invest stifles economic growth, limits job creation, and hinders long-term development. The ripple effects of this geopolitical uncertainty extend far beyond the immediate regions experiencing violence. Global markets, interconnected and sensitive to shifts in risk perception, react swiftly to terrorist incidents. Stock markets may plummet, currencies can fluctuate wildly, and investors often seek safe havens for their capital, pulling money out of emerging markets and potentially destabilizing fragile economies. Consumer confidence, a key driver of economic activity, also suffers when terrorism rears its head. The fear of future attacks can lead to decreased consumer spending, as individuals and families tighten their belts and prioritize security over discretionary purchases. This decline in consumer spending can further slow economic growth, creating a vicious cycle of fear and economic stagnation. Nowhere is the interconnectedness of the global economy more apparent than in the energy sector. Terrorist attacks, particularly those targeting critical infrastructure or occurring in regions vital to energy production, can send shockwaves through global energy markets, leading to price volatility and fueling inflation. The Middle East, home to some of the world's largest oil reserves, has long been a focal point of geopolitical tensions, and unfortunately, a breeding ground for terrorism. Attacks on oil pipelines, refineries, or tankers can disrupt the flow of oil, constricting supply and driving up prices. The 2023 Hamas attack on Israel, for instance, sent shockwaves through global energy markets, leading to a surge in oil prices, as investors feared disruptions to supply chains and a widening of the conflict. These price spikes are not merely abstract economic indicators, they translate into real-world consequences for consumers around the globe. Higher oil prices cascade through the economy, increasing the cost of transportation, manufacturing, and ultimately, the goods and services consumers rely on daily. This inflationary pressure erodes purchasing power, reduces consumer spending, and can push economies toward recession. The International Energy Agency estimates that a sustained $10 increase in the price of oil can lead to a 0.7 percentage point increase in inflation in major economies and shave off 0.1 to 0.2% of GDP growth. These figures underscore the profound impact that terrorism, particularly when it targets the energy sector, can have on the global economy. In today's interconnected world, global supply chains are the intricate webs that connect producers, manufacturers, and consumers across continents. Terrorism, with its ability to disrupt transportation, communication and logistics, poses a significant threat to these intricate networks, leading to delays, shortages, and increased costs. Consider the impact of attacks on shipping lanes, such as the Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping in late 2023. These attacks forced shipping companies to reroute vessels, adding significant time and expense to their journeys. The Shanghai Containerized Freight Index, a key indicator of shipping costs, surged by 260% in the second quarter of 2024, reflecting the impact of these disruptions. Terrorism's impact on supply chains is not limited to maritime routes. Cartel violence in Mexico, for example, has disrupted agricultural exports, leading to shortages and price hikes for consumers in the United States and beyond. Avocados, limes and other Mexican produce have become more expensive and less available as cartels target farmers, transporters, and infrastructure. These disruptions have far-reaching consequences. Businesses face increased costs for raw materials, components, and transportation, cutting into their profit margins and potentially leading to higher prices for consumers. Delays and shortages can disrupt production cycles, leading to lost output and reduced economic activity. The OECD estimates that a 10% rise in shipping costs can increase import prices by 1% in developed countries, translating into a 0.5% increase in consumer inflation. These figures underscore the vulnerability of global supply chains to terrorism and the ripple effects that disruptions can have on the global economy. Terrorism casts a long shadow over the global economy, and its chilling effect on trade and investment is undeniable. The fear of violence, the uncertainty it generates, and the tangible risks it poses to businesses and investors create a climate of apprehension that can stifle economic activity. Foreign direct investment, a crucial driver of economic development, often dries up in countries perceived as unstable or prone to terrorist attacks. Businesses are reluctant to invest in regions where their assets, employees, and operations are at risk. This reluctance to invest deprives conflict-affected countries of much-needed capital, hindering their ability to rebuild, create jobs, and achieve sustainable economic growth. Tourism, a sector particularly vulnerable to perceptions of safety and security, often suffers significant setbacks in the wake of terrorist incidents. Travelers, understandably concerned about their well-being, may cancel trips, avoid certain destinations, or opt for safer alternatives. The tourism industry, a major contributor to the economies of many countries, can experience sharp declines in revenue, leading to job losses and economic hardship. Mexico, for example, has witnessed the devastating impact of cartel violence on its tourism industry. Despite its natural beauty and rich culture, Mexico's tourism sector has faced significant challenges as violence and insecurity deter visitors. The U.S. government's designation of Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations in late 2024 further strained relations and added to the perception of risk, potentially exacerbating the challenges facing Mexico's tourism industry. The specter of terrorism often compels nations to bolster their defenses, diverting significant resources towards military spending. While understandable in the face of threats, this increased military expenditure can have unintended economic consequences, particularly for developing countries struggling to balance security needs with development goals. When governments allocate a larger portion of their budgets to defense, it inevitably means that other crucial sectors, such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure, receive less funding. This trade-off can have long-term implications for economic growth and human development. Investing in education, for instance, is widely recognized as essential for fostering innovation, building a skilled workforce, and driving economic progress. Similarly, healthcare expenditures are vital for maintaining a healthy and productive population. The opportunity cost of diverting resources towards defense is particularly acute in developing countries, where even modest increases in military spending can strain already tight budgets and divert funds away from poverty reduction programs, social safety nets, and other essential services. Moreover, the defense industry itself, while providing jobs and generating economic activity, is not always the most efficient use of resources. Military spending tends to be less effective in stimulating economic growth compared to investments in education, infrastructure, or research and development. Terrorism, often intertwined with broader conflicts and instability, fuels humanitarian crises that reverberate far beyond the immediate zones of violence. The human toll of these crises is immeasurable, but the economic consequences are also profound, placing a strain on resources, disrupting economies, and hindering development. Forced displacement, a hallmark of conflict and terrorism, uproots millions of people from their homes, livelihoods, and communities. These displaced populations, often fleeing for their lives with little more than the clothes on their backs, seek refuge in neighboring countries or within their own borders, placing a strain on resources and infrastructure. Host countries, often ill-equipped to handle a sudden influx of refugees, face significant challenges in providing food, shelter, healthcare, and other essential services. The costs of accommodating and integrating displaced populations can be substantial, diverting resources away from other priorities and potentially straining social cohesion. The economic repercussions of these crises extend beyond the immediate costs of providing humanitarian assistance. Conflict and terrorism disrupt agricultural production, destroy infrastructure, and displace skilled workers, hindering economic activity and exacerbating poverty. The World Bank estimates that for every year a country is in conflict, its GDP per capita growth is reduced by an average of 2.2 percentage points. Furthermore, the instability generated by conflict and terrorism can spill over into neighboring countries, destabilizing regions, disrupting trade, and hindering regional economic integration. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine, for instance, has sent shockwaves through the global economy, disrupting energy markets, driving up food prices, and displacing millions of people. The economic consequences of terrorism are far-reaching and multifaceted, impacting every corner of the globe, from the direct costs of attacks and the disruption of supply chains, to the chilling effect on investment and the strain on humanitarian aid budgets. Terrorism poses a significant threat to global economic stability and prosperity. Addressing this complex challenge requires a concerted and collaborative effort from the international community. No single country can tackle this issue alone. It demands a multi-pronged approach that combines security measures with efforts to address the root causes of terrorism, promote sustainable development, and foster international cooperation. Strengthening international cooperation is paramount in combating terrorism. This includes sharing intelligence, coordinating law enforcement efforts, and working together to cut off terrorist financing. The United Nations, regional organizations, and bilateral partnerships play a crucial role in facilitating this cooperation. Equally important are efforts to address the underlying conditions that create fertile ground for terrorism to flourish. This involves promoting inclusive economic growth, reducing poverty and inequality, and addressing grievances that can fuel extremism. Investing in education, healthcare, and job creation are all essential components of a comprehensive strategy to counter terrorism. The fight against terrorism is not just a security imperative, it is also an economic imperative. By working together to address this global challenge, we can create a more secure and prosperous world for all.